Welcome to The Finisher, a podcast about professional wrestling and all things, well, wrestling. Here are your hosts, Jerry Pickering and Dan Nawrocki.
Welcome to another episode of The Finisher, podcast about professional wrestling, news, rumors, big topics. Dan, how are you doing today, sir?
It's a great day for wrestling, my friend.
Is it? Is it really?
I don't know. Well, you know what? At the moment, it seems like it would be a good day for some wrestling.
Well, let's talk about it.
I mean, that is kind of the whole point of the show. That's what we're here to do.
Let's talk about,
But if not, I do actually have a nice keto-friendly meatloaf recipe if you'd like to go ahead and go with that one instead.
Pork rinds?
No.
No?
Fuck that shit.
Let's talk about SummerSlam.
Let's do that because it seems to be it is the big show coming up, next weekend?
Correct.
And it might have itself a new home.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be, the Amway Center?
The Amway Arena over in Orlando, Florida. Of course, Florida, where the WWE has gotten the benefit of all the doubts and all of the preferential treatment.
It looks like they're going to be there. They're going to be able to have some more displays, probably different sets and pyro and.
Yeah, okay. I guess you want to, this is supposed to be your second biggest event of the year. Your biggest event of the year was rushed and put into a place where it didn't feel like the biggest event of the year. I understand it. So, I mean, they haven't said whether or not they're going to allow fans at all in the building if they try and sell out this arena. Well, first off, the state, I take it back. Florida's dumb enough, they'll let them. They try, then I'm done.
It's true.
If they are just going to keep the crowd to the current crop of NXT trainees and talent and then make use of the space, I mean, visually, that's probably not bad. I guess pyro, but I mean, ooh. I don't it's one of these things I realize as I talk more. We were talking a little bit more about our top 5 lists, and I was going to bring this point up, but I say this and realizing I sound like 40 years older than I actually am. Because I sound like the bitter old man. I remember back in my day when they wrestled in sheepskin and there was barely any light in the arena and no one had ever heard of fireworks.
What are fireworks?
But I'm like, I don't need pyro for my wrestling.
No.
I don't need all these huge lights.
Are they cool?
Sure.
Yeah, they're pretty sweet. No denying that.
Are they a necessity? No.
So we'll see. Not this weekend, not tomorrow, but next Sunday, what it's going to look like over at the Amway Center for this year's SummerSlam. Which, if we look at the card right now for SummerSlam, we have the WWE Championship, Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton. Universal title, Braun Strowman versus The Fiend, and I'm going to have guesses on that one. Raw tag titles, Street Profits versus Andrade and Angel Garza. SmackDown women's title, Bayley versus Asuka.
As she won that Triple Command Battle Royal last night.
Exactly. Came down to her and Shayna Baszler. U.S. title, Apollo Crews versus MVP.
For realsies this time.
Exactly. And then Dominic Mysterio versus Seth Rollins.
Which actually, if I remember correctly, but even before we went to the horror show at Extreme Rules, that is what we had both predicted was going to be the arc of this storyline.
And you think about it, 15 years ago at SummerSlam, Rey was fighting for the custody of Dominic.
Yep.
15 years later, Dominic is fighting for Rey's honor. It's kind of poetic if you look at it a little bit.
And somehow I don't think Dominic or Seth Rollins will be asking, where the fuck is Vicky?
If I hear that, I'm going to lose my shit.
I doubt they're not like there are certain flashbacks they are not going to do, and I don't think that's one.
Especially that she's AEW talent now.
Well, she's an AEW talent now, and you can't even find that like that's edited out of the original match itself.
Yeah. So Dominic versus Rollins. Raw Women's title. Sasha Banks versus Asuka, pulling double duty on at SummerSlam this year for both the Raw and SmackDown Women's title. And a hair versus hair match. Mandy Rose, Sonya Deville.
Now, my only question is I mean, I guess you got to do something to kind of blow this off, because it's really been a very long, slow burning thing since the split that they call themselves the Golden Couple or whatever the hell the tag team was. But then you give was it because Mandy Rose showed up with a shorter look last week that they decided to make it a hair versus hair match?
Well, no. Sonya cut Rose's hair like the week before.
Ah, okay. That makes
cut a bunch of it off.
Then. Yeah. I'm like, you're kind of giving the game away if you have her show up with a shorter look.
Yeah, she cut part of it off.
Oh, so. God. Means we could see the barber as a special guest appearance next Sunday.
Oh, that'd be great.
You telling me you don't want to see some strutting and cutting at SummerSlam?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're not going to be seeing any more strutting over on Raw.
No. Well, maybe not.
From what I have read, Ric Flair written off of WWE TV during Monday Night Raw, and I'm thinking it's for the final time. From what I've read, is it's going to be written off for good.
Yeah, but here's the so the vehicle for that would have been him taking a punt, but we never saw him.
The lights went out.
Get punted, and they're saying, well, it was Retribution that cut the lights again, because for whatever reason, no matter what this is, the WWE apparently can't secure its power supply, despite the fact that it's now had 3 different shows affected by their faux Antifa group. They don't bother guarding the generators or the fuse boxes or locking things down. Stick now that you've got people's attention, stick to physically assaulting people or doing a little actual property damage. The lights thing is played out.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. So Flair gets punted in the head. Does he come back 2 weeks later and support Drew McIntyre only to screw him out of the title in the main event of SummerSlam?
I like it. That could happen. Who knows?
Or is he actually done? And because it's Ric Flair, I will not, Ric Flair will not retire.
Ric Flair will retire
when he dies.
He's dead.
And even then, I'm not quite sure until for sure I've seen a funeral, because, I mean, Ric Flair has apparently is the Energizer Bunny who has all of the energy, and come back from all of the things. He's supposed to have died 3 times in the last 5 years, and the man recovers and keeps coming back.
He's the real Undertaker.
Right? He's the real dead man. He's
so
death, nah, we're not about that.
Not yet. Woo! Sorry. So you mentioned, the lights going out, and mentioned Retribution. A tweet I seen, I just found it out. It was over August 11th. WWE on Fox tweeted, @CM Punk had some advice for his old nemesis Rey Mysterio on how to handle Rollins after brutal attack on Dominic. And he replied, "I'm just saying, I know a thing or two about Retribution."
I don't know.
He's trolling the fans.
More than likely, because it's CM Punk, that's probably more so what he's doing, because he enjoys doing that stuff.
I love it. I love it that he's trolling him, because he's not coming back. He's not part of Retribution. Even though if you look at Retribution, everyone in there is not who is going to be in Retribution. Everyone in
No,
there is just a placeholder.
absolutely. If they're smart about it, that I mean, aside from a couple people who were there, I've got trainees and I've got NXT talent under those masks who aren't recognizable by their body types, and then you make the big reveal, and then you have the other talent come in, the bigger names,
And
because
they need to have a big name leading it.
yeah, well, basically what this stable to be most effective, I think, and to reach the potential that they're laying out for it, needs to essentially be the rebirth of the Nexus.
Yeah.
Except now there's no Super Cena to blow a hole in the brains of the entire Angle and stable the first time that they get a chance to do a major match.
That's true. That's true. And I don't know who they're going to have be part of it, who's going to be in this Retribution stable of that, but you know.
Well, it's clear, obviously, that's a heel stable if they're going around messing everything up, right?
Correct.
Well, there may be one giant heel now on SmackDown that they could possibly repurpose, because it seems like he's going to need something new to do after SummerSlam.
Who would that be? Would that be the new bald Braun Strowman?
The new bald Braun Strowman. I don't know if he's actually turning heel, to be honest with you, but he press slammed Alexa Bliss. So as far as I'm concerned, he is the dirtiest heel of all time.
He hurt our poor Alexa Bliss, our fellow Ohioan. Oh, what led up to that?
She actually gave an interview earlier on in the show last night where she admitted to having some sort of feelings before Braun. They touched on the fact that they actually are friends outside of the ring and such. Which again, like, the romance angles are really dicey just because, like, when Braun's love life is not very public, so you can pull that with him. Alexa Bliss is in a very public relationship with another public figure. So to try and develop, like, I'm hoping that's also why it got brought up one time and then immediately crushed. It's Lashley and Rusev. When we know the opposite is outside the ring, like, there's no doubt in anyone's mind that this is not an actual romance, the angle goes over like a fart in church. If there's some questioning, that's what I said. We don't like Braun Strowman's romantic life, or the actual man's romantic life outside of the world of wrestling is not a very public thing. So it could actually work if you do a romance angle with him in whatever form it could be. But
True.
when you have two people who are splitting on camera and yet very publicly married off camera, doesn't work. So that's my question. Is this a full heel turn? Are we going to a heel title match? Is the Fiend in some weird way a face here? Are they both just kind of in betweeners?
Or is Braun doing that fake heel flipping back? Who knows?
It's right, or it, like, does the Fiend now try to pick up the pieces of an Alexa Bliss who's been physically and emotionally attacked by turning her full heel back to heel, so now she assumes the Sister Abigail role that they alluded to in the Extreme Rules. On the plus side, there are options in where this goes. Now they have a week to make these things. They have one show to hurry up and make these things go. So, like, this would have been better time maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. So you had time to do more. Like, again, you had time to do more interesting things.
Yeah.
You're working with a character like the Fiend, with a dynamic with the Fiend and Strowman, where there's history, and you can bring other people in, and you can do some very interesting angles because that character gives you so much creative freedom, but not when you only give it 8 days to develop.
True. And with that angle, like you said, there's so many places they can go with it, And it's even extended farther due to this week. If you watched SmackDown, when the show started, when the intro played, and it gave the rating in the top of the screen, it did not say PG.
It did not.
It said TV 14. Is the PG era dead? Was it just rated that? Because if you look back at like the TV guide, it's still listed as PG.
I wonder if did they change the rating after seeing the show and decide, well, I mean, this giant man is beating up this tiny woman. This is not a PG product. So did that certain segment or something else
Like,
that they were doing?
Did that warrant it or what?
Is it a good change? Now, don't get me wrong. If this is a regular change, I personally think that's for the good. Like you said, it gives them the opportunity to do so many more things.
So much.
I don't think we're going to ever go back to the Attitude Era or the brief the everything that followed right there. So I don't think we'll ever see 97 to 2003 again.
So like
some for the good, some for the bad.
Check it when you watch Raw this coming week. Look for the rating and see what that rating says on the TV. When you watch SmackDown next Friday, see if it's the 14 or if it's back to PG. That's going to be the tell, is what this coming week shows. What it's going to be. And who knows? It could have just been that one segment that threw it to that 14, and it could just go back.
And who knows? I mean, for honestly, for all we know, this could also be the influence of Fox going, look, if you're going to do the show on our thing, clearly the watered down, the PG stuff you're doing isn't enough to draw interest. So let's make this a little more interesting for our primetime audience. If you want to still do PG angles, do them over on Raw and NXT, which makes no sense. If one show were going to be grittier and more adult than the other, I mean, I guess it's sort of a three-ring circus. If you don't like the adult stuff, then watch USA on Monday night, and there's a little bit more. But it just doesn't make a whole ton of sense.
Yeah. Now, I was trying to pull up the next story, but the link is not working. So, you probably would know if I just talk, AEW is throwing up a special episode of Dynamite.
Yeah, this week's episode of Dynamite will not be seen on Wednesday night, as the NBA playoffs on TNT take precedence, and not in a. Well, here's the thing: it's not a surprise that the NBA playoffs were at some point going to dislodge AEW. It used to bump Nitro all the time, or Nitro would actually slide up an hour or cut an hour off the broadcast to lead into the NBA playoffs. So there's a ton of precedent here. The interesting thing is not that it's being bumped; it's where they bumped it to. So
yeah, they bumped it Saturday?
Saturday night 6. It would also, to me, is just I also enjoy the irony here. Saturday night 6:00, and don't mistake me. They will make some kind of play about it being on at 6:05. And all of us old school marks will just go giddy over there being wrestling on Saturday at 6:05. Which to draw a circle to what we'll do later on, which was the original time on TBS of WCW Saturday Night, the former flagship show of that promotion. This is why, like, when we do the thing, I feel like 87 talking to you, because you came to fandom at a different time.
Yeah, I wasn't.
So,
I've been watching it for probably, this is 2000, so probably 20 some years.
And I mean, on and off since what? When was?
And I really wouldn't. I didn't watch any of WCW, and I'll just go ahead and mention that now. And so, like, when we get to our top five, I didn't really know where to look for the top five. So
let's hold that and let's bring that back. So, when we come up there. Gotcha. So there are some rather large. Well, they keep saying rather large. It's a relatively packed show for Saturday Dynamite, Saturday, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
What is this? Cody defending the TNT title against Mr. Brody Lee. Because the last thing I want is that dude pissed at me for getting that wrong. FTR in action against Private Party. The Elite taking on the Dark Order in 6-man tag. The finals of the women's tag team tournament, which has been unfortunately just buried on YouTube in its own separate show, but which is fine if it's going to be like a special offering. And I get why they would do it on YouTube because they don't have any other outlet besides that. But there doesn't feel like there's been like as much of a push to publicize the fact that they have a women's tag team tournament happening, and all the opening rounds are on YouTube. So go to our channel, watch these up because the finals are happening on Saturday.
Correct.
And then another huge 8-man, Lucha Brothers and Butcher and Blade taking on the Natural Nightmares and the Jurassic Express. It should, again, it's just a huge, there should be a lot of great action on those 2 hours. And, Jericho and Orange Cassidy will be at it after Orange Cassidy picks up his biggest win of his career last week.
Correct.
Which
now,
made me very happy.
Back during NXT's big thing where they ruined Keith Lee becoming the dual, NXT champion and North American champion. On the heels of that, this has now happened to AEW.
Yeah, you said that you have said it to me before actually explaining. So we know the result of that.
We know the result of
the title match.
We know that result, and we do want to say that somewhere in that match, did I try to say who debuts somewhere in that, not in that match, but in that pay-per-view?
Let's not do that.
Okay.
I mean, because
I'll just put it this.
There was a huge debut. Referee Mike Chioda.
All right, besides that, there were two debuts, and I'm just going to leave it at that. And you won't recognize one of them, but you'll know one of them. If you're a fan of tag teams in WWE in the past, few years, you'll recognize this person. And that's all I'm going to put. So, but yeah, they had a spoiler get out on their AEW show that's supposed to be going up against Takeover on Saturday.
See, that
and
was
it's a big spoiler on a big spoiler.
Right. But also, as we saw for the Great American Bash, it actually got more people to tune in to see that title change.
True.
And they won the night in the ring. So I don't know if that's going to be the same thing or not here. But it's interesting that they chose Saturday. They didn't do it with Friday. TNT especially now has a more fluid schedule and focusing on movies and reruns, not as many originals as I remember them having back in the day. Mm-hmm. So they could have put this show any other night. And I don't know if Saturday night was the first primetime area where they didn't have a playoff game. So I'd be willing to give the benefit of the doubt on that. But it seems very convenient that it happens to be counter-programming the NXT event going on at the same time. But at the same time, I will say this. WWE started that shit.
They did.
You got to remember when they went back to last year's All Out when they did Evolve, that live Evolve event on the WWE network. And I'm not saying an Evolve card was going to trump an AEW pay-per-view necessarily, but they knew the brand of fan that would be appealed to seeing that Evolve card is probably the same fan that would be interested in investing in an AEW pay-per-view.
Correct.
So they made the attempt. Like they kind of, for as much as everyone whines about AEW taking shots as often as they can, like WWE kind of did start that one a little bit, and they try to do it not making fun, but trying to hurt the company financially.
True. I mean, we'll see how it goes between the two and how the ratings.
Well, and that's interesting. That's an interesting point. Now that's head to head, are they going to release the network viewing numbers? Because they normally don't on events like that.
They may.
Just and only if it's good. So that's
only if it's good. If they don't release it, it wasn't good.
Right. If Takeover beats Dynamite and pounds them into the ground, we'll see a press release on Monday. saying how great it was and how big the 30th takeover was such a big deal that we did this many numbers and it beat out everyone else on the weekend rankings and yada yada yada. I'm like, okay, well, show me how many people watched SummerSlam live. Show me how many people watched Extreme Rules live. Show me how many people who watched Money in the Bank live. Like, if you're gonna do one,
do them all.
Do them all, or we can immediately call bullshit on you.
Bullshit.
Not that it matters to them, but still, my point remains.
No, but we were talking about returns. We had a kind of a return, but more of a debut over on SmackDown.
Yeah, on camera debut.
On camera of Christopher Joseph Parks, which you may also know as the monster Abyss.
Abyss. That's old school TNA right there.
Abyss coming out backstage segment with AJ Styles and then coming out as his legal team.
I believe, did they call him the Intercontinental Statistician?
Okay.
As AJ Styles was proving that he's just beaten everybody else who was ever challenging for this title and so on. It was a great moment because it was a throwback to their long rivalry back in TNA, and they had some amazing matches. So one of the better cage matches that the company ever did was Styles and Abyss. So it was very cool to see, and just like I'm a fan of the guy. So the fact that he's been working for the WWE for so long as a producer and is now finally getting acknowledged on camera for being there, like I said, I'm just a fan of the man, so I'm glad to see him getting on television.
Can we get Abyss versus the Fiend?
Ooh. Now,
do you think he would have it in him?
I don't see why not. I don't think it was an injury that caused him to go looking for work as a producer. So I don't see why he might not have a match. But I mean, that would have that has got to be down the line, because you figure, all right, if we play all this stuff out as things kind of sit, we're kind of comfortable in saying there's a very good possibility that the Fiend regains the title at SummerSlam.
Yeah, that's happening.
And at some point,
well, I guess we might as well just call that a spoiler on who our picks are for that match.
Probably. I'm going to say that's probably where we're both going to go.
Pretty sure.
But you'll have to be here next Saturday afternoon to find out.
You'll have to wait until next week to find out who our picks are for. Are we picking TakeOver as well?
You were picking TakeOver, and we're taking TakeOver and SummerSlam, and we'll do them as one, because it's just easier that way for bookkeeping. We'll do it as one entity, so you can botch one night, and as long as you pick it back up the next, you still have a chance for the title. And I believe, and I don't want to make any promises because, and I know that is a bad promotional tool to tease something and then never deliver, but I believe we will also have a third picker in the mix for this monumental weekend of stuff.
What?
I cannot guarantee anything. We're still working on that. But
no.
I believe there will be this will be a triple threat weekend of pay-per-views.
Staying here. I don't care whoever this person is.
If they suck, then yeah, sure.
This person kiss my ass.
I'm just gonna say, I wouldn't say that to said person face to face. Not if you value said ass.
Bring it. I ain't scared.
But you mentioned television debuts, but we did have a return this week, just on the Black and Gold brand.
Yes, and now this return is just showered in issues and allegations and rumors and pissed off people. That return being Velveteen Dream is back on NXT.
Yeah, he came back Wednesday night. And I'd go into a little more detail, but my browser has frozen. Was he not involved in a qualifying match for the North American title ladder match at
Yes.
TakeOver.
Correct. Yes.
Now, did I presume wrong? Is he in the North American title match?
You know what? I did not watch, so I'm not sure.
Okay, fair enough.
Let's see. After the match, Dream lost.
Yeah, Grimes. Okay, Cameron Grimes won that one, so there's that.
But people are pissed out. His accuser spoke on Twitter Thursday, tweeting that he was never contacted by the WWE when they're doing their investigation.
And that's a really bad look, especially after the speaking out movement that brought so many of these allegations to light, and then to do all of the public PR things saying that they're taking all these seriously and we're looking into it, and then never speak to the people who were accusing him of impropriety.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like NFL level investigations right there.
Doesn't look good, not at all. I mean, there's a lot.
There's a lot there, and there's a lot of details that are rather disturbing if they're all true.
I mean, there's a full giant tweet from this person, saying, it's not. It's an NSFW post. If you were to be reading this or whatever, I mean, he's not happy, and there's a lot of backstage heat on Dream as well with this.
Yeah, people aren't really happy about this. I mean, this is one of those situations where it's difficult to support while he's still under investigation. Plus, a lot of talent, I'm assuming, is feeling the same thing. You say you're taking these things seriously, but then it comes out that you never bothered to go and actually talk to the other side on this, and now you're just bringing this guy back. And if any one of us else had been involved in something like this, we'd have just been fired outright.
Oh yeah. Oh.
You already fired guys who had allegations against them without even giving the benefit of an investigation. You just fired them. And Dream is now getting preferential treatment, so it's not coming off as well.
No.
It's not coming off as well in the locker room.
Not at all. It's a horrible situation.
Yeah.
Any angle you look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, why don't we move over to something that's a little more happy? Well, not.
I would say, unless you have another story, there's not necessarily a happy.
It's a sad story, but it's got a bit of happiness to it.
There's something nice coming out of it, at least. Yes.
This past week, last weekend I think it was, we lost Kamala.
Mm-hmm. James Harris passing away at the age of 70 after multiple years of health complications after retiring from the ring.
Correct. And the one El Champion, Chris Jericho, donating $5,000 to help pay for Kamala's funeral and family expenses. So that is the good thing that's coming out of it. I guess there's a fundraiser for it, a GoFundMe kind of thing. Right now, it's surpassed $22,000 in just 24 hours since it was started. The biggest donation coming from Chris Jericho, who donated $5,000. Another donation including $2,500 from Impact Wrestling executive Scott D. Amore, and $2,500 from Pro Wrestling Tees owner. So, WWE didn't do anything?
I have a hard time believing that they wouldn't do something.
They've got to do something.
Maybe just in a different form. I really have a hard time believing that they would let that one, just because. Well, I hate it. It sounds like I'm making this out to be such an evil company because they would do something for one of their former employees that passed, only because it doesn't look good if they don't. I would think that someone in the company would have done something.
Yeah.
Maybe not as big, but they would have found a way to do something.
The story, go ahead.
I was going to continue on this. This sounds, this just continues a trend actually for Jericho.
Yep.
Who has a history here of the last several years of helping out and just doing these acts of kindness that he, just doesn't draw like I think the only reason that this donation came to light is because he gave it to a GoFundMe and it was public after that. But donated thousands to help a bunch of people and a
Five thousand
bunch of
to
different causes.
5,000 to Shad Gaspard's family, 5,000 to help George Floyd's legal and travel expenses, 1,500 towards Brian Knobb's medical cost, 1,500 for superstar Billy Graham's emergency medical fund. What was it? 500 to help a sick cat named Jax.
Right.
2,500 to help with Jerry Lynn pay for several medical procedures. There's a lot of them.
He's helped with the funerals for Rex King. He's helped with Balls Mahoney's. You know, he even helped to save. Actually, several just last year, he even helped to save Kamala's house when he was in threat of being evicted. So, like, it's kind of one of like Jericho being an undercover good guy.
Yeah, 300.
Actually, like putting his money where his mouth is.
300 literally. Out of the $300 goal to help get boots for wrestler Black Dragon, Brett Como.
Just bought the guy a pair of boots.
Like, say it was put out there, he needed $300 to buy boots. That's my goal. Trying to fundraise that. Jericho, $300.
But here you go. Get yourself some boots, kid. I'll let you get yourself some boots. Stay in the air. Stay on the radar. We'll call you for a tryout. That kind of thing.
2,500 to help friend Alexandria Finley beat cancer. I mean,
right? That's it. And
good guy Jericho.
And that's the thing. Like, there's things on here like victims of the Alberta forest fires. So it's not just him. Like, he's doing things not just in the insular wrestling community. He's a charitable guy.
Yeah, he is, and that's it. It's surprising. I didn't see that out of him, but I see him playing shows with Fozzy in the middle of a pandemic. But at least he's donating. That's good.
I mean, maybe there's a karma. He's also working on a karma balance, although it looks like he has a good amount of on the good things, the good side built up.
It looks like it. Let's see here. Why don't we head over and do our top 5?
Why don't we?
So let's take a look here. Our top 5. Let's get into it.
Hang on, let me.
Top 5.
Now, as we were talking about beforehand, or am I stepping on something?
Nope, you can go ahead.
Okay. As we were talking about earlier, our top 5 is our favorite WCW matches. And we were making the comment, I said that we do things like this. That's just we're in the hopper. And I talked to somebody who's been watching at a different level for a different amount of time when it comes to the wrestling fandom. I feel like the old man because I have all this backstory of following since the early 90s. And spoiler alert, he and I are the same age. So even if I find far more white hairs down here than you do up there, which it looks good now because I plucked those things out. Like, they don't survive. Like, this is not time for salt and pepper. But anyway, I'm not going to continue that line. So, saying that, I realize I have some depth because watching WCW as a teen, because you're just engaged in the Monday Night Wars. When you're there, like, you're just in there, like ECW. It's a different experience if you were there in the moment. But then being a little bit more of a historian and diving into stuff early, like I was 5. Like, I will say this right now, and it might be able to narrow it down. When my number 2 match happened, I was 5 years old. So no, I did not see this one live. But going back, and being impressed on everything from the past is a whole other story. Which is why I feel like the old man. I'm going to go get the walker while
You are.
Jerry go ahead and while Kid Jerry over there goes ahead and gives us his short list.
I have 5 different ones. I mean, I watched some clips. I was trying to find some stuff. Like I said, I don't really watch much of WCW back in the day, or not. I mean, I've got the network. I could go through and just start watching it now. There's so much of it. So I've got some matches. I'm just gonna tell you the matches, and that's gonna be it. I'm not gonna enlighten on anything. I picked 5 that I watched some clips of and thought they were pretty good. So that's what I'm going.
Your number 5 match.
1998 Halloween Havoc. Goldberg DDP. I watched some clips and it seemed pretty like a solid match. That's it.
And it was. Unfortunately, no one saw it that night. That was the infamous Hollywood. Well, that was also the match before it was the infamous Hollywood Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior that deserved the negative 95 stars because it was quite possibly the worst match ever shown on pay-per-view, even worse than the stuff that we watched earlier on Heroes of Wrestling.
Whoa!
Yeah. And also that show also happened to go long. So for many people on many cable systems, as the main event was starting and as they were introducing this world title match, the pay-per-view window closed and that was it. They didn't get to see it. So that match actually aired in its entirety the next night on Nitro. And I want to say they had to offer something like $3 or $4 million worth of refunds to people that had bought the show for that. As opposed to anyone picking up the phone and calling a cable company and saying, we're running long, can we have another 10 minutes, and so. So that's a great match. It is a great match. It's a rather infamous match, though, for a whole different reason.
There you go. Dan, what's your number 5?
My number 5, as I said, has to go back. But a quick side note on these, when I started looking back, I cut myself off going all the way back to November 2nd, 1988, because that was the day that Turner Broadcasting bought out Jim Crockett Promotions, and there was officially a World Championship Wrestling promotion, even though that name had existed as a show back into the 70s as part of, actually both Georgia Championship and Mid-Atlantic. It was actually November of 88 when it became its own technically separate promotion.
Gotcha.
So that's as far back as I'm going. But not much farther forward for match number 5. We're going to Wrestle War 1990, the Midnight Express, and the Rock and Roll Express. I don't think it's any surprise. I love me some tag team wrestling. I hate that Vince hates it, but I love me some tag team wrestling. So here, why not start with a match between the 2 best tag teams of all goddamn time? The Rock and Roll and the Midnight, and argue with me if you want, but they had the greatest tag team rivalry in history that ran from the mid-'80s well into the 90s. And as I found out looking into this, they had, as teams, had their final match in 2008.
Oh, wow.
The Rock and Roll, by the way, as a team debuted in 1983. They still work. They were working NWA power tapings last year. They were NWA World Tag Team Champions in 2019.
Weren't they just on AEW?
Yes, they were. They were part of FTR's Tag Team Appreciation Night.
There we go. I thought I saw one there.
So while these teams faced each other, hundreds, maybe thousands of times over the years, and they probably had better matches than this one on house shows and dingy barns where people were trying to throw anything they could at Jim Cornette. Their showdown here at Wrestle War was the biggest, probably high-profile match they'd have, and it is a best display of storytelling and psychology that I could point to. Tag team wrestling done the way it should be done.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Let's go to our number 4. My number 4. Pick just because the 2 guys. Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. Anytime they fought, I know it was always going to be a great match. And that was Halloween Havoc 1997. So not that long ago, but still long ago.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio. So that's my number 4. Dan?
Number 4, fast forward to, and well, I have another Halloween Havoc, actually.
Oh.
But Halloween Havoc of 1993, where Cactus Jack and Vader went at it in a Texas death match.
Good old Vader.
Those, rest in peace, big man. Those two brought hardcore to WCW before hardcore was cool. You gotta kind of remember wrestling was a really, really different place in 1993, and so the level of violence that these two brought to this main event match was not something you were seeing every day. It was just absolutely brutal. Pretty sure Mick got a concussion, although that doesn't
shocker
on that one. He beat the bejesus out of Vader too.
Really?
And oh yeah, and the interesting bit of it is, and they still kind of protected Cactus with the finish, because the only reason he didn't get up for the final fall is because Harley Race hit him with a stun gun. I mean,
don't tase me, bro.
That says, but that at the same time, if you think about it, that says everything you ever want to know about Cactus Jack, is that in a match like this, where it's this brutal and this violent, the only reason he stopped getting up was because the manager of his opponent hit him with a taser.
Jesus. That's your number 4. Let's go. My number 3. My number 3 here is Ric Flair versus Sting. Great American Bash 1990. Ric Flair versus Sting.
Sting finally climbs a mountain and wins the title.
Is that what that happened then?
I believe that's the show, and it actually happened. I might have my years wrong, but I think that it's also one of those where it happened later than it was supposed to, because Sting blew out his knee, and Flair didn't want to drop the belt to somebody else. He had promised it to Sting, figured it was wanted the passing of the torch moment. So they had to wait until the Bash in 90. I actually wanted to do it earlier, but I could be wrong. I might have my years mixed up.
Gotcha. Dan, what's your number 3?
Number 3. Well, this time I don't feel bad about stepping on it, because my number 3 match is Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio Jr. Yes, he was still junior then. From Halloween Havoc 1997, with the added that this was the Cruiserweight Championship against Rey's mask.
Okay.
So he had his mask on the line years before they actually a couple years before they took his mask off and ruined everything. But come on, it's a favorite list when it comes to WCW. I had to get some Cruiserweight love into this. So why not pick one of the best matches in the history of the division?
I picked a good one for number 4 then. Cool.
You picked a good one for number 4. And that's not to discount necessarily any other ones. I mean, Ray and Dean Malenko had a great series of matches around the same time. Eddie and Dean had a good series of matches. Hell, Chavo and Ray had a series of matches. Like, that core on top of the division was just so good. But this one, absolutely best story, best matches, best moves, best counters, incredible display from both guys.
Gotcha. All right. Let's hear 3 to my number 2. 1998 Fall Ball War Games. Fall Ball 1998 War Games. I picked it because of it being a War Games match, and I've seen a couple of them. I didn't actually get to see this one fully. I watched a clip of it. Like I said, I watched clips of all these, but just because it was a War Games, I always thought those were kind of a cool concept.
So 98 would have been the odd 3-team thing with WCW and 2 the Wolfpack and NWO, and that's
yes.
when the Warrior showed up and did his thing, showed up the cage, and kicked his way out to chase Hogan down, and eventually giving DDP the title shot, which he would redeem at Halloween Havoc against Goldberg. Also, side note about this match, well, not necessarily about the match, but about that particular spot where the Warrior appears after all the smoke shows up. He appeared through a trap door into the ring. The problem with said trapdoor to the ring, even though there were two rings that went back and forth, is that no one had bothered to tell those who were going to wrestle earlier in the night that there was a trapdoor in the ring. Unfortunately, Davey Boy Smith took a couple of bad bumps on that and got a back injury, which directly led to his reliance on pain medication, which directly led to his early death.
Rest in peace.
So, again, infamous for a whole other reason.
That's my number 2. Dan, what's your number 2?
As I said, this match took place when I was 5 years old. So obviously I'm recounting seeing it. And again, however, my number 2 match takes us all the way back to the Clash of Champions 6 in the Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana, April of 1989. Ricky Steamboat defending the NWA World Heavyweight Championship 2 out of 3 falls against Ric Flair. It is tough to choose which of their encounters in their series in 1989 actually deserves to be on this list. But the old school nerd in me is going with the Broadway at the Superdome here. It is absolutely one of the most technical and the most psychological matchups you'll ever see. And it's a solid hour. They legit went the Broadway for 60 minutes, or about 55, I think, before Ricky finally grabbed a third fall. But in another bit of counter programming, this clash was actually, it was April 2nd, so this clash was on free television on TBS up against WrestleMania 4. So put that together. This is a 55-minute match for a world championship, and it was counter programmed against a show where the matches were averaging 7 minutes and 8 seconds, and the world title changed hands just under 9 minutes into the main event. And honestly, at the time, there was absolutely no comparison and no question to where the real wrestling was. And the perfect display of that was 2 of the best to ever do it that night.
I like it. That's your number 2. Do you have any honorable mentions, Dan?
I mean, did you have to ask?
All right, I'll sit back. Go ahead.
I have better developed my process, so I only wrote a sentence for each of mine. So, Bash the Beast 96, come on. The Outsiders and their mystery partner against Sting, Luger, and Savage. You have to have this one on every list because of the historical importance. I guess I should make sure you know that the mystery partner was Hulk Hogan, formation of the New World Order. Cactus Jack makes another appearance with his Falls Claimer match against Sting at Beach Blast 92, a very close second in my mind behind the Vader and Cactus match for most hardcore in WCW. Flair and Hogan for the WCW title at Bash of the Beach 94, the dream match of a generation finally getting a proper pay-per-view stage. Big Van Vader, hey, what do you know, Big Van is all over this list for me, takes on Sting in the White Castle of Fear strap match at Super Bowl 3. Mm-hmm. Their encounter at Starrcade 92 might be more acclaimed, but for me, this far more brutal match is still great and one of the best strap matches that you'll ever see. And then Macho Man, Randy Savage, and Diamond Dallas Page at the Great American Bash in 97. This was the best of a 3-match pay-per-view series they had. They went to war, mayhem, and the madness. That's all I got to say about that. Which begs the question, what is your number 1?
My number 1, this will be really quick. My number 1 was your number 2.
Really?
Ric Flair, Steamboat, Wrestle War 1989.
That's a different match.
It's a different one?
Wrestle War, yeah.
Okay. I said 89, so I thought it was the same thing.
Well, they had 3. Steamboat won the title in February at the Chi-Town Rumble. They had the Clash in April, and then Flair won it back in May at Wrestle War 89. And interestingly enough, that night, one of the judges, to make sure they didn't have any issues with the time limit, one of the judges was one Terry Funk, who would go on to face Flair later that year in actually a match that should have been on my honorable mentions list in an I Quit match at a Clash of the Champions, which was incredible. But Funk pile drove Flair on the table.
Ooh.
outside, and it was a table. It did not break. It was one of those kind of matches.
Oh, jeez.
So, but being at Wrestle War, like I said, Flair, like I said, it's tough to figure out which of those three. They're all amazing matches. I think all three of them got 5 stars. Tough to pick one of them. However, for my number one, I give the game away. You said you saw a War Games match and needed to put one on there, and I agree. That's why my number one match is the War Games, the Match Beyond from Wrestle War 92, Sting Squadron, and the Dangerous Alliance. And I have raved about this match before, so there's no need to go into too much detail. But this is my favorite match ever. Yes, Flair and Steamboat is possibly the greatest wrestling match, period. But for me, this encounter is the most entertaining match in an underrated era of WCW. Talked about the star power, talked about the brutality, talked about the storytelling. It all, for me, comes together to make up my favorite.
All right. I like it. Now, that is our top 5 best favorite WCW matches. Here's the deal. Next week, we are picking 3 of us, supposedly, possibly.
Maybe.
And if not just the 2 of us, we are still picking 2 pay-per-views.
We are.
And talk about that. So to keep in time, we're trying to keep our podcast and stuff under 1 hour. We're going to go ahead and pick our top 5, but that top 5 will be shown on the 29th.
Oh, we're drawing now.
We'll draw now, which should give us a little more time. We don't really need it, whatever. But so we'll draw now, but we'll do our top 5 on the 29th because, like I said, we're gonna have 2 different pay-per-views that we're doing picks for, and if there's 3 of us doing it, it's gonna take a little extra time, and we're trying to keep our podcast here under roughly an hour or under, and I really don't want to go much over an hour. So just as a time crunch effect, we're gonna hold on to that top 5 and do that on the 29th. Which will then be our final show before we take a break until I think the 19th.
Yeah, we gotta get ourselves a little summer vacation there.
We need a little bit of break.
Oh my God, yes.
I've got some stuff going on, so I can't do it, and so that's going to be another reason we're taking just a little bit of a break.
It'll likely be a complete break, so everything will kind of be on hold if I remember correctly.
We may be able to do some streaming.
Maybe. Like that might not. We'll see. It all depends. Like that's the thing. Like at this point, where everything is, we still are legitimately not sure where we're going to be when. So
just watch our Facebook. We'll let you know. So like I said, this top 5 is going to go for the 29th, which then will be our final show until the 19th for a couple of weeks.
In 2 weeks, we'll have a top 5 that I will guarantee you will finally be able to participate in without any question.
Let me get my pad.
Because on the 29th, our top 5 will consist of the 5 worst intercontinental champions. If you even think about putting Honky Tonk on that list, I will hunt you down. Don't even get any cute ideas just to piss me off. I will find you and I will take you out.
He's cool. He's cocky. He's bad.
He's
cool. He's cocky, and he was a bad Intercontinental Champion.
All the bad takes.
Oh shit! So that will be not next week, but the week after, over on the 29th.
Correct.
For that top 5 worst IC champs. So. On this post, let us know who your top 5 WCW matches are. And also let us know your worst IC champions. What's the matter, Dan?
Well, I was trying to... wow, okay. Well, the lists... things keep disappearing off my list. So I was also going to try to find a... Oh, wow. All right. There's a lot of stuff I'm going to have to go and clean out here. So I was going to go and try to transition and find a way to say what we're still streaming this week, and including our normal stuff on Monday night, our semi-regular. You'll be on your own on Wednesday night for gaming, but I'll be with you on Monday, and likely Likely not on Friday. Actually, now that I think about it, there is something that we're going to be doing. Actually, and the best part about this is once we get done with this on this, we're branching out a little bit here, and we'll be able to give you some details that there is some new offerings coming from what
I'm going to go ahead and call this that we are creating a multimedia network. I'm going to go ahead and call it.
That's a good way to put it. I like to keep it. We'll say that this is under the grand umbrella of the Interrobang Network, because that was something we had a vision of doing like 10 years ago, and it's finally coming to fruition. So part of this,
I mean, we've got this podcast and all the things we do for this show, this podcast, the flashbacks, the gaming, all that kind of stuff. And Dan's got his podcast, his fairly kick-ass podcast.
Everything that goes into that, everything about music, and I mean, it's everything about music, all your new releases and such. Actually, I believe we just posted our latest crop of album reviews for new releases just this morning. That comes out twice a month, and now we have something new.
Yes, we are gonna have there's gonna be a new show, a new YouTube channel. Not gonna give the name out yet or kind of anything. Let's just say when this debuts, we're gonna want you to sit back, pour yourself a drink, and hang out.
That's a very, very nice way to put that.
Stand by for that.
That's being fleshed out as we speak.
We are filming the very first episode on Friday, so we'll let you know when that's going to debut and when you can enjoy that. And we'll have a Facebook page for that, a YouTube page where you go follow all that stuff, and you'll get the new updates right there for that new show, which you'll learn about soon.
Once we have some details, we'll be able to release those. Probably safe to say that this is coming in September.
Yes.
Probably the later half of the month. So just to keep that on your radar. There's something wicked this way will come.
That's the key word right there. That's the key word. Figure out what the key word is. I just said it. So make sure you check us out. Go make sure you're on Facebook. If you're watching us right now, you're on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Finisher Podcast. You can find all of our social, our Facebook, our Twitter, our YouTube, and all the places where you can find us on the podcasting networks over at our website at thefinisherpodcast.com. Dan?
Before we go, I need to explain the little oh no's that I had over there. Because what I was trying to work in was a tease explaining what we were doing on Tuesday night, because it's a big thing. We're doing our episode what, 3, which is it, 3, 4? We're doing another episode of the Flashback. Hell if I don't remember how it is.
And Saturday, we got to be careful. I'm going to go ahead and say we got to be careful with your audio.
I was afraid of that.
Because our video on Facebook got kicked.
Okay.
So I didn't put it up on YouTube. Because
that explains it. Well, then officially it's not this. So that was on my fault. So Jerry, what I'm going to need you to do is reopen that random number generator, because as I went to go pull that video up that I had, I set off to side so that I was able to give you some more details than what we had picked on Tuesday night. Apparently now that there are a couple matches I pulled off of YouTube that are now no longer available in our country.
Oh, that's awesome. So what's the max number?
Well, that's for the next two numbers were CPW.
No. How many numbers are we choosing from? I need to know how many.
It won't open and let me scroll down. So I'd like to. I can't tell you. And that may change as well, because there's also a couple other videos that disappeared off this list, so it might change. But let's go ahead with 33. Give me a number from 1 to 33.
Here we go. 24.
Interesting. this actually, now I know this will stay because this is in our country and it's, um, we haven't, we rarely talk about Impact, the former TNA, on this show. And if we do, it's usually mocking. So for this week's flashback for realsies this time, because I know this video isn't going away, we're going to stay on YouTube. So we'll give you the link here in the next couple of days. But we will go back to June of 2002, where we will go head up on YouTube and live react to the first ever TNA pay-per-view. Back when they were still doing weekly Wednesday night shows. It is NWA TNA pay-per-view number 1 this week on the flashback.
All right. You heard it there. So make sure you come back here on Tuesday to hang out with us for our flashback and make fun of stuff with us right there in the Facebook chat. Watch along. We'll give you a 5-second pause and get you all caught up. Make sure you check out, like I said, check us out on Tuesday. Check us out on our website, thefinisherpodcast.com. Everything is there for you to get to. Everything we talked about today will be up on there. All of our top 5s will be up on there. Dan will get that up there. He is amazing at that. So until we talk on Tuesday. We'll see you guys. Monday on our streaming on our Twitch.
Yeah.
So we'll see you Monday. You guys have a wonderful day. See ya.
Look, there's a very fine line between not listening and not caring. I like to think I walk that line every day of my life.